Question number 9 from the SAT number 17. This is the April 2019 QAS test. And question 9 says, based on the passage, it can reasonably be inferred that Celia tells the narrator about leaving Panama, lines 91 through 96, primarily to. So here to solve this, what we want to do is go back to those lines 91 and 96, and ask ourselves, basically, why is Celia telling the narrator about her leaving from Panama and immigrating to the United States? Sort of what meaning does that convey? What's the purpose of it? So that's going to be right here in this paragraph where she explains. And let's step back a little bit just to get the context of what's going on. So this little paragraph here comes right after this scene where there's sort of this semi-awkward interaction between Celia and the narrator, where basically they're talking about where the narrator's daughter goes to school. And I'm not too clear about what Evers might mean or what kind of school this is. Maybe it's a disciplinary school or like a military school or something that might have some stigma attached to it. So they both feel a little awkward talking about it. But they end this scene basically with the narrator saying, I hope so, it's why we came, right? We came because it's a good school. That's the whole reason why you're here. And then Celia gazed at me a long time before she said. So it seems that these two things are integrated, these two moments, basically with the narrator saying, yep, we came all the way here, basically for her to go to this school. It's the reason why we came. And then Celia sort of looking at her, thinking, pondering for a moment, and then responding with this. So they seem to be related. So then Celia says, when we left Panama, it was falling apart. Rafi and I thought it would be better for the boys to grow up here, even though Panama was where we had spent our whole lives. It's amazing, isn't it, what parents will do for their children? So this is pretty much, it looks like Celia is trying to relate to the narrator by giving her own story of immigration and basically explaining this is the reason why we came, right? So you came for your daughter, and we basically came for our sons. Isn't it remarkable what parents will do for their children? And then later on down here, they have this little moment of connection, sort of based on, seems like based on this paragraph and based on sort of this interaction that they just had. So for that reason, it seems like the story that Celia tells about her immigration is really used just to create connection. It's really used just to demonstrate that she has understanding and empathy for the narrator. So I think we should look for an answer choice that will match that. So 9 says that Celia shares a story to encourage the narrator to share her story of immigration. And maybe this seems plausible because basically Celia is explaining her story, trying to open up the narrator so that the narrator feels more comfortable explaining her story. But this is a more specific claim. For it to be true, we would have to have a little more evidence in the passage. Maybe Celia could mention at the end of this, like, I hope that my sharing my experience will help you to share yours because I really want to know more about what you're saying. Some sort of indication that this was the intention of Celia, was to specifically get the narrator to share her story. But as it stands, it doesn't really seem that Celia is trying to make this happen, so I'm going to get rid of A. B says that Celia shares her story to remind the narrator of the reasons they both immigrated to the United States. This one might seem plausible because it's basically saying that Celia is sharing her story, so to kind of commiserate a little bit with the narrator, to help the narrator remember this is why you came, this is the reason why I came. The problem with this one, I think, is that it's a little too specific with not enough evidence to back it up. So specifically, it doesn't seem like Celia is trying to get the narrator to remember her story. It seems like maybe the narrator already has a pretty good handle and a pretty good remembrance of what her story is about, and that Celia is more so just trying to connect with her and basically explain that they have similar stories and therefore similar emotions and can relate on that level. So I don't think the reminding part is there. And then again, just to get particular, Celia is really only sharing about her story, not really about the narrator's story, which is probably similar but different as well. So for that reason, I don't think B is going to be the best answer choice. We could keep it and come back to it as we're solving it, but we'll see that it's not as good as another answer choice. So C says that Celia shares her story to console the narrator by describing how Celia's family has prospered since they left. So for this to be true, within this paragraph, we would have to see something about Celia talking about now how her family is successful, how they've prospered since they left, and we don't really see any evidence of that. It could be true, it could not be true, but because it's not mentioned, we can't answer it, so we'll get rid of C. D says that Celia shares her story to assure the narrator that she understands and empathizes with her. And I think this is the best choice. It's pretty neutral in general. It's not making too specific a claim, and it matches already kind of what we said about the scene, where it seems like Celia is just trying to create this point of connection with the narrator. The narrator maybe feels awkward about coming here for her daughter to go to the school for whatever reason, and then Celia is kind of feeling empathetic, looking at her for a little bit, thinking, and then responding by saying, here's my own story. Isn't it amazing what parents will do for their children? So there's this point of connection, point of understanding, and some empathy. So I think D is the best answer choice for question number 9.